beautiful day. We appreciate the weather here in Florida, and we ask your kindness and blessings on those who are not experiencing the warmth that we happen to be experiencing today, the fresh water that we can drink, and the feeling of safety. Lord, be with us as we make decisions. Help us to remember and know your will, and help us to make certain that we follow through in every way that we can help and keep our students safe, keep our students educated, and keep our students healthy. We appreciate your love and support. In your holy name we pray. Amen. I'm going to call the meeting to order and welcome citizens of Clay County. Most of you will be, any visitors I believe, are going to be watching us on YouTube at this stage of the game, and we just want to thank everyone who is here with us. Thank you for being here today, and particularly thank you for working with Clay County Schools, because each and every one of you is incredibly important. Mr. Roski, would you like to get us started?
Sure. We got 3 things. I'm going to remove my mask so you can understand what I'm saying here this morning, since we're socially distanced. We have the review of the actual agenda for the March 4th meeting. We then have a presentation on Synergy. Synergy is the new student database that will be instituted starting July 1st. Kind of a big deal, and the board really needs to know what's going on with that particular program. So, not to be confused with synergistics, 2 different things. I already had somebody ask me, is this the energy thing? No, not the energy thing.
How much are we saving?
And then also we're going to need to talk a little bit about allocations at the end. So those are the 3 items that we have. So just looking at the agenda, first we have recognition of student athletes. There's 5 of those, 5 students involved in that. And then on to the consent agenda, we have the minutes. I don't think there's anything remarkable relative to the minutes. Number 2 is our proclamation on the Clay County Agricultural Fair. You know, we've had a long-standing tradition of partnership with Clay County Fair. We're going to continue to do that. There'll be signs that we put up, advertising like we've done in the past. A little different as far as the table goes, because it's my understanding that part of the building is occupied with PPE and other stuff in those buildings. So they kind of have a smaller area, so the district will not have a table. Instead, we're letting them have it for paid vendors. Of course, we'll still have a presence there. We're still highly supportive of the fair, and we'll continue to be supportive of the fair.
Do we have a fair day this year?
No, because when we redid the calendar, we had to have a date, and it was picking between President's Day or Fair Day to keep the hours.
So we'll work on getting back to Fair Day next year.
It's on the calendar.
next
It's on the
year.
calendar next year, and the one that you guys approved for the following one, I believe, already.
Okay, so number 3 then is approval of the half-cent oversight committee application form. A lot of, you can see the application there. I think you've had communication with Mr. Victor, and looks beautiful. When Trudy does good work, and we love having her back, you know, to do projects like this to make it more visually appealing. So number 4, C4 is our yearly E-rate. This year, you know that we're an 80% district, which means that 80% of what it costs is referred back to us. Okay, copper switching, so a lot of infrastructure relative to technology is what this particular item is all about. So number 5 is the personnel consent agenda. Within the personnel consent agenda, we have the superintendent's office job descriptions rewritten. I will openly call to your attention that the chief of staff, we've severely rewritten that particular job description, and I've also moved the ranking from a coordinator 2 to a coordinator 1 on that position. So there should be no shocks, because I'm formally announcing that. When you take a look at the organization of the work, the things that used to be done by a deputy superintendent are now done by a coordinator, such as the calendar question that you just asked. Most deserving of that. Be willing to handle any phone call that you would I'd like to bring forward relative to that topic, but just wanted to be open, honest, and transparent relative to that. The only other one that I would like some direction on, because our goal is to rewrite every job description according to the Hvac audit, right? So the job description for the school board attorney, because the school board attorney is the one position that the board hires, if the board would allow me, I'll work with Mr. Bickner and we'll rewrite the job description there and add to it, subtract from it, etc. Because I'm thinking that was 08. Was the last time that was written. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember the number at the
I don't
bottom.
remember it ever coming, so.
Wow.
But it's a
I
long,
think that's a great
long
idea.
time, so I'll
Yeah.
work with Mr. Bickner. We'll rewrite that one, but I didn't want to be presumptuous and just present it,
Right.
since it's really that's really your deal, but the goal would be to rewrite every job.
But if you're willing to work on this
Yes.
and with Mr. Bickner, I don't, do any of us want to argue and say that we would rather do that?
Oh, God, no.
I don't think so, okay, I think that's a great idea, thank you.
Yeah, but out of respect for the board, I didn't want to just do it and put it on the
Put it
agenda.
on the agenda, oh, we did this, got it.
Number 6 is the appointment of the CCA and CESPA bargaining teams. You can see that, it's the same. Believe it or not, we've reached that point again. We'll start bargaining once again. In the case of CCA, that's an open book, meeting the entire contract. So we're very thankful that through negotiations, we agreed to move the open book back a year because of all that was going on. It really didn't make sense. And in addition, we had the teacher salary plan that the state had proposed. So it really didn't make sense, so we kind of moved it back a year. So now this will be the year that we do the full book for CCA. Of course, we're proud of our tradition and our relationship there.
May I ask, how often do we do the full book? Every
3 years.
3 years?
3 years.
So we did the full book 4 years ago.
4 years ago,
technically.
yep.
Okay, I think that, I don't remember going through that, so that may have been
Well,
right
we
before
might
I
have
came
just
on.
gotten,
It probably happened right before I came on.
There'll be lots of language, and I would suspect that Clay Virtual, there's language, there's an actual article within the contract that deals with Clay Virtual. I would suspect that online education types of items will be a hot topic that need to be discussed, given where we're at, right now. And so, while we haven't heard anything from the state level about what we would call OCO yet, I mean that's a big decision on the horizon for the state, and then eventually will trickle down to us, in the district, and how to handle that. We are proud that we're almost at 92% of our students are brick and mortar, so parents see the value of coming to school physically in person, and those that don't and want a different environment, we've provided that for them. And so, I think the state has done a really good job, and so we'll look to see what their direction is relative to that in the near future. So number seven is an MOU for the Montessori program. We've worked hard, Ms. Troutman and her team, with Ms. Kidwell and CCEA relative to the Montessori program. The Montessori program is one of our most successful school choice programs. Next year we'll be up to 8 teachers.
what grade will we go to next year?
What's the final grade? 6th?
6th.
So all
Very
6.
good, wow.
So part of that, and the reason why it's coming to the board, is that there's a retention bonus in there of $1,500 for Montessori teachers, as well as a requirement that the teacher stays within the program for 2 years after the training is done. The training is about $15,000 to $18,000 for the training, so the district puts a huge investment into this program. We want people who are committed, that are going to stay within the program. The teachers that are there love it, and they love being in the program. In
What
addition,
percentage of the school is Montessori?
I don't know the total percentage,
About a quarter? A third?
but
I don't think it would be
the
that
math
high.
wise,
It's
I would think it would be like 20%.
It's about a quarter.
20%.
25.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
amazing how it's grown.
Yeah.
Mr. Ivy's doing a great job over there. We wanted to ensure that if, as a district, if we were going to pay $15,000 to $18,000, we wanted some commitment from the folks involved, and at the same time, give them a little bit of an incentive to want to be in the program, and that's the purpose of the $1,500.
So was the bonus always there, or is that something we've just added?
The bonus is something that we're adding, and that's one of the reasons why I'm bringing the MOU to the board, to make you aware that that is the case. You know, it's kind of a trade-off. You're gonna go through all the training, but the training's expensive, and they actually have a credential. Like, you could take that credential and go somewhere else with the credential, which is the concern, why the district wants a commitment from those individuals. So that's kind of the big picture of that MOU. So number 8 is academic services, out-of-state and overnight travel. You see that a lot of those are athletic competitions in which teams are advancing. Number 9 is the calendar for the Florida Youth Challenge Academy. Of course, they're on a separate calendar. Number 10 is proclamation for School Social Worker Week, which is March 7th through 13th. Okay, School Social Worker Week. There is little doubt that the importance of social workers and those folks have grown significantly given all that's going on in society today, and so fitting that we honor them that week, which is March 7th through 13th. Number 11 is proposed allocation changes. Doc always smiles when she sees a 0 at the bottom of that document. She gets like this little gleeful look in her face and smiles, and just, you know, she's radiant when that happens. Let's put it that way. So number 12, of course there'll be changes, and of course we're moving towards the allocation package, which will be the March 11th meeting, the workshop on the 8th, distributed to the board on the 5th, etc. So the next one is the agreement between the emergency management, Ryda Elementary. This is a retrofit in which we would be reimbursed for the work that's done there, with an estimate of $360,000 in work. Number 13 is the monthly financial reports. Number 14 is the budget amendments. Number 15 is the payroll calendars for 21-22. 16 is the favorite of deletion of certain items. 17 is a bid renewal for plumbing construction. The first lowest bidder was Wright Plumbing out of Clay County, and the second lowest bidder was Gary Bailey, also from Clay County. Number 18 is a vendor agreement renewal. This is for our third-party administrator for our insurance and our employee benefits. And the recommendation is approval, and it goes on to explain all that the Bailey Group has done. Number 19 is a change order to the HVAC. So now that the replacement, I always kind of point this out, you know, like how expensive things are. The replacement of the chiller at Orange Park High School, $987,000. Right, so, you know, in the big picture of things, very, very expensive. 20 is pre-qualification of contractors. 21 is our fish certification. We bring this each year. 22 is approval of the mitigation agreement. And I'm going to let Mr. Bickner explain why you've already approved something very similar. And Mr. Bickner is going to explain why this one's back again.
This came before the board and was approved on May the 8th, 2020. What you have before you is identical. The problem that came up about a week ago, it was discovered that when it was created, the Amendment A, the Exhibit A, which has all the legal descriptions for that piece of property upon which they're gonna be building, had an error in it. It had a 3-part rather than a 2-part description. So it came back from Mr. Fossa. He was contacted by, I think, the people for Bradley Creek, who looked at it, and they had created the document, and they had created with the error in it, fundamental. And so it had already been approved back in May and in June by all of the parties. So the only thing that's changed in this, it says amended, is that we've gone to the Exhibit A, pared it down and gotten rid of the Part 3. So it's just the 2 parts that actually describe what we have. And you'll look and see that the next to the last whereas on page 3 explains what happened. So that the rest of it is exactly what you've approved before, without the errors. And just so you'll know, the error was not on our fault and not something that we could have seen, because we don't get surveyed when we get the legal description for the big property that's being developed. So there was no way for us to know that it happened. So that's all it is.
Thank you, sir. So D1, there is special action there. D2 is also special action. If you have questions, feel free to reach
It's been a
out.
while.
It's been a while, and well, save my commentary on that one. So that brings us to renewal of our employee benefits. I just want to say I was at the meeting the other day with Ms. Bullock and several other people in the room, and very proud that we're going to offer to our employees a flat renewal for.
Amazing.
And I can't remember. I meant to look it up. But the last time that's happened was.
Ever?
I can't remember when the last time.
That is
that's
awesome.
happened.
That is absolutely awesome.
The trend
At
is
least 8 or 9
improving,
years
so.
ago,
Yeah, a
but-
long time ago.
Yeah, I remember, we've had it.
So it
That's
was
just
exciting,
amazing.
everybody was exciting, and, I kind of heard rumor that something like that might happen at the meeting, so I showed up at the meeting, and I everybody was just kind of like stoic, and I'm like, yeah, hey, we can kind of celebrate the idea of a flat renewal. That might be a good,
Yeah.
a good
Absolutely.
thing. So, no doubt that Miss Gann and her group do an awesome
Absolutely.
job. The Valley group did an awesome job as our third-party administrator, and I think that United also came in. I think our ratio was 76 or 78. That was-
77.8, we were
Right.
close.
Wow,
Okay.
that's very good.
But we were supposed to get a 16% renewal,
Right.
but with negotiations, we got a flat renewal, which saved the district and employees about $5 million.
Whoop, whoop, whoop,
Very
whoop.
good.
I
Thank
like
you.
hearing that.
Nice.
It was a very good renewal.
That's very good.
Our
That's
business
like
getting better.
an unheard of renewal.
Yes, you're right.
That was, yeah.
Really, we're trending well, and then the other thing is, of course, is the only increase was if, was in the dental insurance, if they choose to take that, it was such a minor amount.
Yes, and that's because we're adding in plants, beginning 10/1 to the
Exactly.
plans. The committee voted on that. And
Because
you'll
employees
see the
have wanted
rates
that.
per pay period is very low.
Great.
Yep, so I was real pleased.
That's such
Very
good
cool.
news. We're long overdue to hear something like that.
But this
Yeah,
year,
really.
as we go back into the norm, it's probably going to return a little bit to what we used to see, do you think? Is that,
Do you think
It's-
so?
It's hard to say. I think that perhaps people are using medical care less because of the pandemic. And so what that'll do as far as usage rates and all of that, I can't predict the future. I'm happy to celebrate the present though.
yep, yep.
Because that is a huge celebration. And then we'll deal with that when it comes.
It'll be interesting to see how that just progresses.
That brings us to D5, 6, and 7, which are all related to rezoning. So the first one is the rezoning or the realignment, I should say, of Oakleaf High School and Ridgeview High School. I could say that I haven't gotten a lot of people contacting me. I've got a couple parents I'm working with. that have concerns, and we're dealing with those and trying to accommodate those folks best we can, but not a lot of information. I think that the presentation that was given that night for those individuals, I think Ms. Murphy did a great job of representing the school. And then, of course, Oakleaf High School, even with those students moving, will still be a large school, you know, within our district.
And we'll probably still have, as we get closer to the start of the next school year, some parents who didn't even realize we had a workshop on it, and you'll probably get some.
I think for all three of these, even though the next two are for a year out, that we would still send communication to them next year to kind of remind them, you know, of that. But
And
I
for
think,
any new families that move in.
but I think that, you know, giving a year's notice, over a year's notice, I think is proper, and, you know, I'm proud of how it turned out the last two, you know, to deal with those issues.
It was handled well, thank you.
Thank you. So the second one is Tynes Elementary in Coppergate. And then the third and last one is the Lake Asbury Junior High, Lakeside Junior High one, in which that's where they used to go anyway, and now pushing back that way. And that completes the agenda review. With the chair's permission, I'll go into the next topic. The next
Unless there are any
topic.
questions for the agenda review, haven't heard any, so feel free.
So the next topic is called Synergy. Synergy is our new student database, which will be in play starting July 1st. I don't know if you remember going from terms to focus, right? So anytime that you have a conversion, a couple things happen. One, no matter how much communication you put out to people telling them that there's a conversion, no matter how many emails, no matter how many social media posts, no matter how many, I think people will say, I had no idea. I had no idea that this was even happening, right? And so we've been working at getting the word out. You know, I thought it appropriate to tell the board in February. I mean, we've been training on this for a while now. And one of the things that'll happen is, you know, a big concern of mine, and we'll try to eliminate this and alleviate this as best we can, is that parents, of course, go to focus for their student grades, right? But I think you're gonna see, after seeing this particular presentation, they actually have an app for your phone, which will make it more convenient for parents.
Oh, wow, that's great.
To actually look this up. So I think you're gonna see the improvement, but I'll just caution you that I've lived through several conversions, and every time there's always challenges that exist, there's always miscommunication, there's always tweaks to the system. And so as board members, knowing this is coming down the pike and will be happening starting July 1st, the conversion, I thought it would be appropriate for them to come, give you a 10-15 minute overview, answer any questions you might have. All right, Ethan, who's starting you off?
Would you like to?
Let's put Sabrina's in the hot seat.
Sabrina's.
So as Mr. Browski pointed out, Synergy is the name of the product that we're moving to for our student information system to take the place of Focus. The company's name is EduPoint, so you'll hear both of those things. Synergy is the product, and EduPoint is the company. And this is something that we've been working with for a little over a year and a half now, maybe even a little bit longer than that, as we started the process. And then we had a situation where COVID hit. We were intending to go live with Synergy last July, but due to COVID, there was no way that we were going to be able to get the training in place. They weren't able to come in and join us for trainings. A lot of complications with that, so we made the decision we're going to postpone it for another year. So now we're in that situation. We are ready to go live with it in July, and we're pulling up the presentation that you have right there in front of you. but we wanted to give you some highlights on as to what Synergy does for us. You know, why is it that we're going through this transition? So this is something, the more that we learn about this product, our guys that are working on this every day, we're more and more excited about making that move, because it's going to be able to do so much more for us, and most importantly to Dr. Hvac, for less money in the long run.
Great.
So doing the cost analysis for all of the things that we're looking at with Synergy, we're looking to save over $1 million in the next 5 years. You wanna
Sure.
take it from here?
So those are all amazing points, right? So we're all excited about having new systems, but also saving money. But one of the things that we're really excited about from the instructional side and from the IT side is this takes multiple platforms and condenses them into one platform. So you can see on the screen and in your presentation, not only is it just Focus that we're going to be updating and replacing, the gradebook is now called Teacher View, so that's a piece that's within the Synergy platform. The Focus Parent Portal, they have their own app. Teachers have their own app too, so they can access things on mobile devices. It's much more user-friendly. I don't know if you've ever tried to access Focus as like a parent or a teacher on a mobile device. The words are really small, you have to click on it, and then it's like you have to pinch to make it bigger so that you can see it. So this is an all integrated app, just like you would see from like anything that's very modern and professional. It's all laid out really. Schedules, click here and it comes up in a format that you can see it easily. Grades, it puts all of the kids in one. So if I have 3 kids at 3 different schools, I can see them from that one app. I just choose my student, it goes to that page with the schedule and the grades for that student, so it makes it much easier to keep up with everything. The students are also going to be able to access it too. They can access everyone can access it from a computer or also from a mobile app, so there's a student app as well. So students can take that ownership of their own grades and keep up with the progress for themselves. We'll also be taking Performance Matters and moving that into Synergy. So we give our baseline assessments for like our EOCs and progress monitoring. That's going to move into the Synergy system. We'll also be able to run reports so we can see these are our students that scored like a level 1 on FSA. So we want to be able to track those students to be able to support and progress monitor them. We'll be able to pull reports in Synergy through that. It's also going to replace ESE Star and 504 Star. Those are some of our oldest systems. So we've had ESE Star for a very long time. It's not very user-friendly or modern, so our ESE team has done an amazing job looking at all of those forms and paperwork and getting that into the Synergy system as well. Currently, teachers have to log into Focus to get Focus information, log into Performance Matters to pull reports, to fill out an IEP, log into IEP Star to actually access the IEP and fill it out. With this system, they'll be able to log into Synergy, and all that's going to be in one platform for them to be able to see everything at one time. And that goes for school counselors, administrators, parents, all that's going to be in that one single pane of glass. The MTSS process, also going to be so much easier. Right now, it's kind of a combination of you fill out some things on paper because you have to make a graph, then you have to put some things in Performance Matters to track over here, and then you have to put some things in Focus to track over here. This is one system, again, where you're going to log in, click on MTSS for that student, you type in their progress monitoring, it creates the graph, everybody on the MTSS team can see it. So being able to help and support those students and everybody being on the same page of seeing that information to support them, going to make it so much better. It also has online registration. Amazing. Like right now, our registration team has done a fantastic job. When COVID hit, we had to kind of jump to online registration. We did it through Google Forms. They did an amazing job making it work, but it was difficult because it has to go through kind of one person to get out to the other people. This is all going to be embedded in Synergy. Parents are going to be able to fill out all their forms online. It's going to go with the workflow to the correct people. So everything is going to be a lot better with that as well. And then one of my favorite parts, it has a communication platform as well. So we offer teacher communicate through Blackboard, so our admin do robocalls and things like that. Our teachers can use that to email and text parents. The issue for teachers is they can send a text message to the parents, but the parents can't text them back through that system. They have to email or call in order to respond to the parent. With this system, they're going to be able to text them back. So it's not necessarily through their like little green bubble of your text, but if you're familiar with like a Remind 101 or something like that where you download an app, so the parents will have their Synergy app. There's one on there called Synergy Mail. So right from there, they can click on Synergy Mail, type their message, it goes straight to the teacher, to the administrator, whoever they want to access from the people that are tied to their student. And then the teacher gets it, they can respond either on their computer or also by a mobile device. So it gives that feel of being able to text back and forth right within the platform of the app. So I think that's going to make people really happy. They can even send pictures. So if the class went on a field trip and the teachers want to say, hey, we had a great time on our field trip today, and they want to push it out to the parents to be able to see it, they can send it right through that Synergy Mail and app in that system. So I think that whole school-to-home communication is going to get so much better with the ease of access for these types of things.
We really anticipate to get an improved parent working with our SIS with this application, having the app and that kind of thing. So that's something that we're really excited, getting the stakeholders more involved.
And then this just kind of goes over some of the things that we've talked about. It does consolidate multiple platforms into one system, so it's going to be easier for our staff to navigate. It's going to be easier for our parents and students to navigate. So just being able to have everything in one place, that's also going to make it, I mean, honestly, it's easier on us too, because instead of 4 things that we have to monitor and keep up with and make sure they haven't broken, and when one updates, it sometimes doesn't work well with the other system for that update. So with everything being in that one system, when they update their system, they're updating all of the pieces to make sure everything is working well together. We did say it does update some outdated systems. Focus isn't one that's really outdated, but our ESC Star and some of those other applications, they are pretty out of date. So we're excited about getting a more modern system for those platforms. Has the mobile apps for everyone. So it's like, you get an app and you get an app. We have one for teachers and students and parents and school counselors and admin. Admin can walk around school with their phone. They see a kid that's tardy. They're like, hey, what's your name? Okay, Johnny, you're supposed to be in Mrs. Bola's class. Let's go there now. Or let me do a tardy pass right here from my device. So it's pretty cool that I think that's going to help a lot too. And the projected 5-year savings is over $1 million, so we're excited about that as well.
So is this a 5-year contract?
It is.
It is, and I know you're showing the savings, projected 5 years is over $1 million, but you don't show any financial impact of what the actual cost is.
Look at the last page in your thing, and there's more about that there. It shows some of the cost of the applications that we'll be replacing, as well as the cost per year for Synergy.
So and then just to follow up on what you just said, the cost of what we're going to be replacing. So it said the yearly cost, as an example, for Performance Matters. So does that mean that we're going to be going with the Synergy assessment versus the Performance Matters assessment? Okay. And I'm assuming that it is comparable to the Performance Matters, gives us the same data, et cetera.
Better, yeah.
Better data. And obviously with Performance Matters, we were able to get into language arts, math, and science. And so with this, we'll be able to get it, and I'm thinking science off the top of my head, because that was an area. So that's, yearly cost is $265,000 for Performance Matters.
Right.
So that would then replace that, well, this would then replace that cost, but there would be a cost to us.
So through that 5-year analysis, we've got a few applications that we're going to have to run in tandem in this next year. Once we get done with that, then we've got a huge savings each year. So if you look at that last column, the 5-year cost from 2020 to 2021, with the changes comes to approximately $2,165,248. If we were to have continued with focus for the next 5 years, in that column, the cost would have been $3,174,065. That's where that difference of a little over $1 million comes.
Thank you for breaking it down like this.
That's
It makes
very
sense.
helpful.
Thank you.
Wow. Another quick question. Since you were talking about the applications, I was trying to think of all of the different applications that I know teachers like to use. And you had said something about using the Synergy mail. You're out on is that, right now, the only program that came to mind was Class Dojo.
So it can replace Class Dojo too, and we're excited about that because.
And
Yep.
I don't know if you're familiar with Class Dojo. Class Dojo is a program that many teachers have on their phones, and they're able to, let's say, Beth, you're doing such a good job, click, I'm sending this picture to your mom and telling her what a great job you're doing right now. Or, Ashley, you didn't do your homework today, and mom wanted to know if you didn't turn in your homework, sort of thing. And it's an immediate positive response, or an immediate quick, hey, you know what? Do you want to talk to your mom, sort of thing, or do you want to send it, whatever. I mean, or dad, or whomever. So, very good classroom management tool.
Yep.
in many ways.
A piece of it that is it's in between a couple of other places, but it's called check-in, check-out, and so that's the point where you can give points to students. So it's got that positive behavior built in as well, so you can have your class, and just like you said, you can say, hey, Ethan, you did a great job today listening and following directions, I'm going to give you your point, and then that goes straight to the students can see it, the parents can see it, the teacher can see it. So that idea of Class Dojo, then that communication is all through Synergy mail. So instead of the parent having to have focus to see their grades and Classroom Dojo to see their behavior and Remind 101 to get the communication, we're condensing that all into one place, so parents only have to have one app where they can see the grades, the behavior, and the communication all in one place.
So from somebody who's been room mom before, is there a place in there for like sign-up sheets and whatnot? Is there a way to tie that in so that it's through the same platform or no?
So I think the way that we could handle that would be, if you were the room mom and you had a sign-up form for something, you could send that to the teacher, and then the teacher could send that out through Synergy Mail. The parents could click on that form and sign up for everything within it. So it might not be that the room mom could go directly, but I think that we could send it, that whole, goes to the teacher, and then the teacher pushes it out to everyone. We'd be able to handle it that way.
Okay.
And that follows up with a question about security, because I immediately wrote down security question mark. How do students access their data, or how do parents access the data? Is it with a student number? And if I know students are not supposed to share their student numbers, but I know many students who know each other's numbers for whatever reason. So is there a security measure that's aside from that, or is that pretty much strictly the way that they get in?
So it'll be the same username and password that they use to access their portal and all of the other things that they have. So where we require them to have an updated password twice a year, that 180 days that they're responsible for. So they will still access it with their username being their student number, and then their password being the password that they have for Google and the portal and all of those kinds of things. So the same security that's in place for those is going to be in place for this as well. And really, if they'll need that to be able to access the app if students wanted to, but if they click on their portal and log into their portal, there's going to be that Synergy tile in there that they can click just on that, and it'll single sign them on, so that they might not even know that they have the password. If they're a younger kid, they might not even notice. Parents, it's going to be the same thing that they have, like we set up the parent portals with Focus right now, where they had to come in, they had to show their ID to get tied to the student. We're going to take the information that's already in Focus and give that to Synergy to email them out kind of a, hey, we know that you have a parent portal account already, use this to download the Synergy app and sign into it.
Great. So it'll be very simple to make that
Fingers crossed.
transition.
Yeah,
It
the
should be.
authentication piece is very robust. So we're looking at, when kids get into our portal, and this is something that we're working on every day with all applications, so that we get them right into that application as quickly as possible, so there's limited downtime on instruction. This would be one of those things.
Just curious, obviously it's not brand new because you're in 21 states, but do we have an idea how many are in Florida, in any counties?
There's us in Hillsborough.
Hillsborough, okay.
Did you work with Jeremy on this?
When is this?
And if you did, that's great, 'cause we.
It's not on the March agenda, they follow up.
That's already been approved.
We trust him too.
And we need a spell
We're
check
just
on
filling it in
ESE
because it's a
secretaries.
big
Oh,
deal
yeah.
when it happens. I think April, but
Last
almost.
April.
I'll take care of that.
Secretions?
Just FYI.
Alright, yeah.
Good job.
I'll find,
Good
I'll find
idea.
the exact.
Thank you.
It was before.
And then this is just kind of the timeline. So we have been working on it since the spring of 2019. This January, we began the training cycle for our school administrators and school counselors, kind of our power users for the program, because they're going to need to know how to do things. When that July 1 date hits, they're going to have to be able to immediately enroll students, make schedule changes, all of those types of things. So they're kind of our first people getting that training. In May, we're going to start sending out our email flyers, kind of letting people know, remember, this is happening. Obviously, the school administrators have already had training. We've talked about it in a lot of our teacher sessions that we've had with things, so people are aware that it's coming. But just giving them kind of more of a heads up of what to expect during that kind of May timeline. From June 15th to June 30th, that's when kind of Focus and Synergy sort of shut down for a minute for us putting new information in while everything rolls from Focus into Synergy. And then July 1, we'll be going live with Synergy. And then in that late July, early August timeframe, that's when we'll start training teachers and other instructional staff. We have kind of a variety of platforms. Our teachers have really, once we got through the initial COVID struggle and we had to learn things online, they've actually started to kind of prefer that self-paced, being able to watch a video and take things at their own time to be able to set things up. So we're going to have that in place, as well as face-to-face sessions. If people aren't comfortable with the self-paced online, they can also come in and get some face-to-face training as well. And we're doing that kind of in that timeline because instead of it being I'm setting up a fake grade book and I'm going through all of this stuff just for training purposes, when we have the training, it's going to be when their grade books are ready and live, so they'll actually be able to go through the training and set up everything for that year. So it won't be like extra work. It's going to be let us show you what you need to do to get ready. And we do expect the transition from Focus to Synergy to be less intense than it was when we went from paper to Focus. So really, if you look at the grade books now, the Focus gradebook and the Synergy gradebook look very similar. So it's not going to be a huge leap for our teachers. It's just going to be, there's some differences that they'll need to know and be aware of that we're going to be able to provide to them.
And obviously, Synergy does the seating plans.
Yep.
You can put in place like pictures of students and things of that nature for seating. I mean, it's the same.
All of that, and it's even better because they're.
We were able to do all of that. It was just like.
Yep. The seating charts, you can move them around. They have, just like Focus does, it has like the little desks and things that you can put in different places. I think it even has like a little flag you can put and all of those types of things. And then on the student will populate with lots of little icons like Focus does too. So if there's a medical, like an allergy that they need to be aware of, or if they have an ESE plan or any of those things, it comes up as little icons. The teacher can click right there from the seating chart on that icon and go to the ESE plan, to the MTSS plan. So I think that's going to be really nice as well.
Well, I'm thinking preparing sub-plans.
Yes.
It was ideal to do a seating chart for the sub-plans with the pictures of the students, so that when Johnny came in and said, I'm going to be Steve today. It doesn't work that way. No, Johnny,
The
you're
elementary
supposed to be
world.
sitting here.
Sabrina, what's the feedback been like from the staff that you've already trained? Are they pleased with it?
Yes, very pleased. Like, everybody has seen it and they're like, it does this is great. I mean, it's just been a lot of that kind of feedback that it's like, we always wanted it to be able to do this. So people have been really excited about it.
I'm seeing nodding behind you as well, so.
Even some things like, you can do fire drills with it. So like, you know how you had to take out your clipboard and your pen and you had the green flag and all of that kind of stuff?
Everything's
You can take out your mobile device, it has it on there, so it's like, hey, there's a fire drill, you click. If you've got all of your kids, you click the green button, it sends the notice to the administrator, like, it's just amazing. So, yeah, I think it's gonna be really cool once we get everything going with it.
And it's saving us money.
Yeah.
If I can speak on
It's a
behalf of
win-win.
the guys that work on the back end of things, it really is a mature product when it comes to how the data is arranged, and it's clear that it's been something that's been around. And not only that, but they've been able to tweak things and work it in a way that makes sense on the very back end that nobody else will see except us. But the best thing is that it matches on the front end. So the navigation and things making sense as to where they are within the application shows that it's a mature product on the front end, and I'm vouching for it being on the back end. The quality of our data is going to be so much better after we make this move.
Very good, thank you.
That's awesome.
Is this
Sounds great.
something the bus drivers could also use? Just curious, because they do seating on their buses, and if you have a sub that doesn't know what the child looks like, or you've got a new child getting on the bus that day, just curious if this could be a part of that.
Now, don't we have a bus app already? Do
Well,
we still
that's-
have that bus app?
There's Bus Planner, and Bus Planner has it in there where they put their seating charts right now, which it is by student name or student number, their routes and the distance and their pickup and stuff. So I'm wondering, I don't know if that's something that you could put in conjunction.
Especially the picture, yes.
The picture part of it, because I don't think we have pictures on Bus Planner. It's just student name and student number, and you can put them, like it has like the row, and if they're column 1, 2, or 3, because we can't fit 3 kids to a seat, but, yeah. See if it will link.
That's something we can take back to the team and find
That's
out.
something that we can look into, yeah.
Because I know we all know they have problems with, you know, when you've got the sub and somebody out especially.
Yeah.
But when you get a new student that comes and the bus driver says, I don't have your paperwork, I'm really not allowed to, you know, I think pieces of this would help a lot. So, anyway, just throwing it out.
And then for parents as well, there'll be videos that we push out to them. This is how you download the app, this is how you navigate the app, kind of similar to, gosh, it's been a long time now, maybe like 6 years ago when we got the One Play app where it was like, this is how you download, this is how you follow your school, this is how you follow the calendars, all of those types of things. So we'll have a big social media and robocalls and all of that information for parents to get it out to them. And then from that point forward, it's just going to be train, support, reinforce, tweak things. You know, there's always going to be things that are like, oh, can it do this? Or can we change this to that because it's easier for people to use? So we'll be making those adjustments as we go moving forward as well.
Is there a way for, like, schools to send out notifications, so you're not just in contact with necessarily your student's class, but if there's a school event, any information about that would come through the app as well?
Yep.
Okay.
So just kind of like the administrators are still going to have the Blackboard robocall system because Synergy doesn't offer the phone call piece of it yet. But they'll be able to send, administrators can send out emails and text messages to everyone just like the parents can. So the administrators will have that school-wide access. The superintendent will have the district-wide access to be able to send those messages. Teachers will just be restricted to the people that are on their schedules. So it's all by what is your security in the system. So if you have access to just a class or a school or the district, then you'll be able to message through that. And then we'll also continue to have the Blackboard piece for the robocalls that parents are used to having those as well.
Okay, great.
When we're training the teachers in July and August, is that going to, are we working with the technology people at the schools at this stage of the game? Or, you know, I'm thinking back to different trainings, MT Sister, or whatever training.
So if I could, Ms. Bowl, I'll bring this all together here because there's one further piece I need to explain to you. Part of the training is we are going to recommend to the board when we do supplements in April, a new supplement that's called an Instructional Application Facilitator. The job description, or the supplement description, I guess I should say, is embedded within the personnel consent agenda. So currently, we have 13, I believe, coaches, technology coaches that are out there. So the plan would be on the April board agenda to take the 13 coaches away and ensure that every school has an instructional application facilitator. In general, people accept change if they feel like they're equipped to accept the change. And so to have somebody that's at the ground at the school that can answer their questions about the basics relative to any application, but particularly Synergy this year, would be extremely important for that to occur, to ensure that it's going to be done correctly. I would also, kind of point out to the board that, there's a thing called change theory, and not everybody accepts change as readily or as fast as others. So I'll share a very quick story of one David Brodsky, who I was a Mac user because I like the simplicity of Mac products. And so, Jeremy had said like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we're switching or we're converting everybody to an IBM. I said, sure, okay. And just kind of, and then Brian Reed came up to my office. I was in HR. He says, hey, it's time to convert. I said, sure, come back later. We'll convert. Well, fast forward about 3 or 4 months, and 4 technology guys came up to the office at one time and said, Mr. Brodsky, you are the last individual within the district. And I said, okay, you know what? Since you phrased it that way, here you go. And so not everybody, so when you're talking about all the bells and whistles, I would kind of point out to the board, and I love when the technology folks, and I think I can use this term in an affectionate way, they geek out over all this stuff. It's, oh my God, this is great. Everybody adopts it at a different pace, depending on who you are, and so you can't expect, like, one concern when you have something new with bells and whistles is that one teacher who's an early adopter is out there doing all this, and then a parent says, well, Mrs. So-and-so is doing this, 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 and this. Why aren't you doing the same thing, right? So everybody adopts technology at a different pace and a different rate. And so we have to be cautious of that. But it's an aggressive, there's trainings every week, and the third, person in this little triumphant is Steve Ambergy, which he does I'm going to call it the non-glorious, part of the system, which is state reporting, data validation, and all of those things such as FTE and money, and those are all equally as important, and that's kind of Steve's role within this program, and ensuring that the data that we have and the conversion is going to be valid is another piece to this. So just to kind of wrap that up, there is a supplement job description in the personnel consent agenda. It's called Instructional Application Facilitator. The plan would be to ensure that every school has one. Currently, 13 schools have what's called an application coach, which is slightly different. What the intent is to pull those back and then push this out to every school. Okay, but that wouldn't occur until the April board meeting, so it's kind of a long-range plan.
Is the application coach that we currently have also a supplement for an
Yes.
existing employee?
Yes,
Yes.
And there's 13 of those.
correct.
And you'd be deleting 13 and bringing how many?
42,
42. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because currently not every school has one of those.
Right.
I just
Well, they're gonna need
think,
it.
I just think when you're talking about something as big as this, right, how focus has become a part of our lives. Every time, I talk to a parent, I say, hey, did you check their focus grades? It's kind of like normal, and now you can see how this could be integrated to an even greater extent to the lives of our parents, our students, etc. We want to make sure that we have somebody on the ground floor. You can't have an organization where the structure is such that you call the county every time there's a problem. You got to a variety of people skilled enough to answer those questions.
I'll
So
think back to the beginning of
that's kind of the
focus
plan.
and all the phone calls and headaches for people just to learn it, figure it out. And
Yeah.
go from terms to that, which I don't think, nobody liked terms, but I don't think people were too happy with focus when we switched over.
When we had terms, just a perfect example, with terms, we used to print out every report card. I remember printing out duplicate report cards because one had to go in the student's file,
Right.
one had to be sent home. You had the envelopes, and hopefully the envelope would come back so you could do first quarter, second quarter, et cetera. And then we go to focus, and all of a sudden the county comes to us and says, you're not sending out any more report cards. And I'm sitting back going, but, you know, I mean, I still have my kids' report cards, you know, come on, they're in the attic someplace, you know? I mean, come on. And that was the push, to realize, to have families realize you're not getting it in writing anymore. We're saving trees here. And then parents would contact us and say, can I pay you to print off a report? Sure, whatever, here, let me just send it home with you. And I mean, it was almost like we would do it under the table, you know?
Well, is
I'm
it-
gonna send you one, but I'm not sending everybody one.
Is it something with the new program that if a parent wanted to print out report card, they
They
could?
could.
We can print it, I mean,
You
and
can
that's
print
just
it
it, you can print it at
yourself. I mean,
home.
if you
But
wanted as a
getting the
keepsake.
parent to go on
Yeah.
to focus to look, they did not want to do that. Now, it's just everything's on. I mean, we're going out to Seattle and my son said, don't worry about bringing cash because people aren't accepting cash. You know what? So, I mean, everything's online, everything's on your phone, everything's there, so I think they've become
This
much
sounds
more
like a great program.
ingrained to that.
Yeah, and I, you know, at the school, that, see it as certainly a boost, but again, we have areas like Clay Hill and McRae that have some internet complications. Is that gonna still be an issue, I guess, for those parents?
Any place that you can get phone service, you'd be able to use the program through the
Right,
app.
but I mean, even there, some of that is sketchy at best. I mean, like, you know, like in the Clay Hill and McRae area, some of the
Yeah, if the
internet
parents are
providers.
having trouble accessing things online because of where they live
Yes.
or things like that, like Ms. Bola said too, we still have the ability to print. So if a parent requested, can you please print this for me because I don't have good access to the internet to be able to check on things, we can still accommodate that as well.
Because, I mean, some of those areas still have some shoddy service, I know that. I see them posting all the time, what's the best service in this area, what's the best service in this area, so it's a problem still for some of those.
Mr. Broski, the supplement that you mentioned, is it going to be just for the year of implementation, or are you seeing that as a long-term?
I think you should always evaluate the need on a yearly basis, but I mean, there's clearly the need for this next year to start.
Especially as more and more of this is going to be occurring.
Right, and
That's a
we're
good
gonna be
question.
layering some features every year because we can't roll out everything at once.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be layering features every year, so I would assume that would, as Mr. Broski said, just reevaluate every year, but there's gonna be new features that we'll need to train on as we go.
Any other questions about synergy?
I'm sold.
You had
Well,
$1
hey,
million
that's
savings.
Of
awesome.
course, I was told I think it came like January of last year, January, February.
I'll find the month
It
and the
was,
year that
I remember
that
it
came.
now.
Yeah.
And at the time, was Hillsborough using it, or were we going to be the first
No.
ones
We were
in
the
the
first.
state? Because I think we were the first in the state.
And I think, I vividly remember, I wanna say it was the October principal meeting that you had to
Okay.
tell all the principals, get your schedules ready, cause we're switching, and everybody was like panicking because you don't normally have your master schedule set in mid-June. So I feel like we were talking about this even October last
Right.
year, as far as scheduling aspect.
I remember when it was brought to us, and it was in the other room, and, we were gonna be the first one in the state of Florida. Yeah, did they come and present? Do you remember, Terry? Did someone from there come and?
I feel like
They did come and
Yeah.
present to us, yeah.
I feel like last year with COVID, everything's just
Yeah, I mean,
It's hard to, yeah, it's that
Sure.
long ago. This is great.
Okay, Ms. Bowe, if I could
Please.
kind of bring you together with a couple of ideas. One, just a couple reminders, with allocations, the plan would be to show the allocations to you after the board meeting on the 4th, which would then have the Oak Leaf Ridgeview situation correct, depending on the vote, you know, that evening.
You'll have a hard copy for us?
Yeah, we can have a hard copy.
I'd like a hard copy of the
Yeah.
allocations.
And then so as far as allocations go, I'll tell you openly, the idea would to have as least change as possible. You'll notice that in schools, there might be a subtraction of one instructional personnel, another school might have an addition of two, depending on how that all shakes out. So then the plan would be on the 8th, we have a meeting, I believe it's 1 o'clock, and we'll kind of review that. That gives time for any adjustments the next morning, and still meet the 48-hour rule, and then the actual allocations would be on Thursday,
11.
the 11th, okay? And then that rolls us into, and the reason for that time frame is that we roll into reappointments at the April one. You have spring break that 1 week there, and it's the 15th, in the middle of all of that. And so traditionally, the first round of reappointments occurs April, and then also the supplements also occur on the April agenda. So that kind of leads us to that. Now the world that we live in and what we experienced this year, I would expect the allocation change document to be used frequently as we approach next year. We simply are trying to catch up with the movement of people, within our system. And so that's kind of the plan there.
Is that enough time for evaluations to be done?
Evaluations are due by the end of this week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You know,
evaluations
for
are
instructional
wrapped up.
folks, so.
Very good, okay.
So it's kind of the plan would be to do that. Of course, not everybody gets reappointed on the same board agenda. At the April board meeting, there'll be a very thick document, a separate agenda item in the human resource section. And then each person that gets renewed after that goes into the personnel consent agenda as they do their certification requirements, their out-of-field requirements, all of those kinds of things. We reappoint administrators in the first week of June. We also reappoint the probationary annual first year to our district teachers during that time frame. I think Doc will bring it up to you, but I'll bring it up to you now. Of course, we wait for further information from Tallahassee as to what our budget's gonna look like, next year. And so we have to follow the process and move forward with the process, but still have flexibility that if something were to happen, we have the opportunity to deal with that occurs, and I believe that we're set up to do that. And certainly, we've all adopted to many changes over time, and so I'm sure we'll face and confront many others. There's one thing that I would call your attention to. I'm going to ask Ms. O'Moore to reach out to you to schedule one-on-one meetings with Ms. Ellis in operations. The purpose to that is her department is the only department that'll have additional personnel, hopefully, and I think the board needs to see the overall plan for personnel related to operations. You can say that you're going to do additional work, but if you don't have people to do the additional work, you can't do that. And so I think that might require a little bit of time individually for you to meet with that department. And so I'll ask Ms. O'Nore to reach out to you, kind of coordinate that. We'd be looking to do that in the next 2 weeks time frame, because, my plan would be on the March allocation agenda meeting, which is March 11th, to have the allocation document pretty much what's gonna happen next year. Now, that doesn't mean that there couldn't be a curveball, along the way, heading towards August. But the shell of it, the basics to it, the 95, 98% of it, should be accurate. We're not looking to make great changes, next year. I don't believe in any department, with the exception of operations. You just have to have more people in order to get more work done. Okay. And with that, that's it.
Just a quick verification, on the 8th, March 8th, the meeting's at 1 o'clock, and on March 11th, the meeting is at 1 o'clock also, correct? Okay, just making sure. And I wanted to thank Ms. Honora for sending all those meetings out after our last meeting, so I appreciate that.
That's it.
Mr. Bickner, do you have any comments or concerns, questions that you'd like to bring up?
None, thank you.
Ms. Gilhausen?
Just a point of curiosity, what does FSA look like for OCO students? Do they have a time that they come in to take the FSA, or?
So we are going to, the state just last week has extended the timeline for that. And so we'll develop a plan that makes our parents feel comfortable in students coming in. For test security purposes, that is something that we're working on currently with those. And I think it really just depends. In talking to principals, some principals have indicated that they don't perceive a problem having communicated with their parents, verbally as to coming in and taking the test. But right now, it is true that parents that are of OCO students would have to have the student physically come to a location to take a test for test security purposes. It is also true that the district would have to attest at least 95% of their students, which has always been the threshold for many, many years in the state testing system. And so,
Is it 95% of our total population or 95% of OCO students?
of our total population,
For each test.
for every test.
Right.
Right, so the state puts within their testing system, a series of rewards and consequences. Part of the consequence section would be that if you don't test 95% of your students, a school's grade would be reduced by 1 grade. If the district doesn't test 95% of the district students, we would be lowered a letter grade also.
So how do we test Clay Virtual students for FSA?
They were going into Clay Virtual.
Okay, so they come in person as well?
Yeah. And of course, now we have a huge number, or we had a higher number than we've ever had before.
Right.
So that's an area of logistics that we're working on right now to deal with that. That's on the Dave Brodsky top 5.
Well, we built that really nice testing center at Fleming Island High School. So maybe we could.
Ace testing.
Oh,
I'm teasing.
We recognize that some are concerned. We need to meet the concerns of those individuals and bring them in. The testing is more than just school grades and accountability. It also provides a baseline for future scheduling of that student where they go. So I think everybody tends to focus on school grades and all that stuff. I think most educators are more concerned with where do we place the student properly to give them the greatest chance of maximizing their education, and that's a vital piece. It's one piece that's used in determining where the student goes next, right? So all of that's going on.
And then the other question I had was really for the board members. I know usually during the summertime is when we start to look at the student code of conduct. And as we're looking to redo that, I was wondering if there was any interest from you guys in light of some of the recent events to look at our policy for student cell phone use on school campus. I know for me, I feel like it's a long time coming that we needed to address it. And I think we have a duty and a responsibility to protect our kids, and I think being in the discipline hearings that we've been in, I can't think of one that didn't involve a cell phone. So I think it's something that we need to look at as a board, and I'm sure we'll have different opinions on how restrictive we should be about that, but I think it would be a good discussion to have. I've had parents reach out to me over the last week with a lot of concern about, and there's a lot of storytelling out there as far as what's happening in classrooms with cell phones. So, we have, like I said, a certain amount of responsibility to make sure that appropriate use is happening, if use is happening at all.
And what's frustrating is, as we're saying, if you're and I have no idea if you're recommending more strict use of cell phones,
Yes,
whatever.
I am.
But as we progress into so many different
Yeah.
programs,
Mhm.
the use of cell phones is important.
That's right.
And I know in many of the high school classes, and probably the junior high classes as well, I know of teachers who appreciate the use of cell phones. And it used to be, well, not all students are going to have a cell phone, and now it's like, you know, what kind of cell phone do you have? And the fact that they can use the cell phones to respond to a question on the thing, okay, everybody get the program out, and this is it, you know, boom, boom, boom. So it's,
Well, just like, this is from a parent's perspective.
mhm.
My rules for my 10-year-old with a cell phone are going to be very different from my rules for my 17-year-old with a cell phone.
Right.
So I think that there's a great amount of discussion that needs to happen about what does the cell phone usage look like at school K through 6? What does it look like 7th and 8th? And what does it look like 9th through 12th? Just like, you know, as a parent, you give your kid more freedom, the more responsibility that they demonstrate. And I think that that could be a very, we could have a very similar approach in our student code of conduct when it comes to cell phone use.
I agree with Ms. Gilhousen. I think we're probably long overdue to have it at least evaluated and readdressed. It's been several years when we changed our policy to allow it to be used in school, because prior to that,
They
were
when I was
not.
in
They
school,
were
you had to leave it
prohibited.
in your locker.
so, yeah, if you had it out, it was taken and you get it back.
Yeah.
I remember, I wanna say it was Lakeside Junior High, told my kids they'd get it back at the end of the year if they took it out. I'm like, oh my goodness, but it can't hurt for us to reevaluate and look and maybe see what other districts, how they do each elementary, junior high, high school, and we can look at best practice across the board
I
and see.
think that there is great opportunity for it to be used as a tool in the classroom. I think it gets dangerous when there's a free-for-all in the cafeteria or the library, or you have downtime at the end of class, and instead of studying or reading a book, you're pulling out your cell phone and doing TikTok videos.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my perspective on it.
I'm looking at two people over behind Ms. Kirkus, Mr. Daly and Chief Wagner, and I'm thinking, and if we have a workshop of that nature, they would be there. Ms. Pickett would, I mean, I'm thinking of any input that we could get from teachers as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, make it more of a
I
workshop,
would love to have
a workshop and a learning
information
environment to
technology there,
begin
too.
with.
What's okay,
And
what's
say,
not okay.
let's look at what is
Yeah.
practical.
And
at
the
this
other
age.
thing a parent brought to my attention was, she talked about when we've had egregious things happen at our schools, and she referenced specifically the fight that happened at Ridgeview years ago when the
Yeah.
boy was punched and he died from the punch that he
Right.
received. How there was presentations among our schools regarding that, to talk to kids about the importance of safety and the dangers of violence and fighting. And you know, I think that's something else that we should also look at as a district, is how can we educate our parents about cell phone safety? And you know, whether it's we tell the story anonymously of some of the discipline cases that we've seen. You know, this is what can happen. Yeah, I just think that there's a side of it that parents aren't aware of,
Oh,
because we
absolutely.
see it. And like you said, our teachers, our principals who deal with student discipline could really speak to, you know, the dangers and what we can do to protect kids that we're not doing, that are easy fixes, and how we can partner as a district with parents to keep their kids safe online.
So when do you propose that we evaluate this?
When do we,
We usually do the student code of conduct, is it in June?
It's usually done during summertime.
so prior,
So,
But this
so,
could fall under a policy review also.
so I would recommend doing it the sooner the better, because
Right.
in theory, you would have to, and Mr. Bickner can correct me if I'm wrong, you'd still have to advertise any change for a long,
oh gosh,
for the 28 days.
yep,
The idea would be to have it for August, you know, already done and ready to be
absolutely.
implemented by then. So then that backs the calendar up, and, yeah,
So maybe a workshop in March about, so that we're doing our background understanding of what cell phone use really does look like in our schools, and what
Mr.
the
Daly,
recommendations
if
are.
I can ask you, when do you think a good, I mean, you're new to this relatively sort of still, but you're also former principal, and Ms. Pickett, you also. Comments, concerns, input,
When
help?
I was at Fleming Island and at Middleburg, we revisited the cell phone policy, because when you have 1,500 or 2,000 students, and every single one of them has one, and every single teacher has one, because I'm old enough to have been, in the classroom before there were cell phones, and went through that transition like when you were in school when they weren't allowed. But it becomes a monitoring issue in terms of 4 administrators monitoring 2,000 people. Where do you want to spend your time and resources? So at both schools, we talked about appropriate use of cell phones, when to do it, academic purposes, these types of things. And so, for example, we allowed it during lunch. It was more often the parents texting the children than students texting the children. So we communicated to the parents, these are the time frames that you can reach out and text them. What happened at Middleburg was the lunches went from something that was pretty chaotic with 500 kids to very quiet and docile as they kind of decompressed and did that. And the kids didn't have to sneak and hide them because they knew they had that window to do it. But we communicated that to them through workshops and grade level talks with the kids about our expectations and why we're doing this. This is a privilege to be rescinded and those types of things. And our data went from, I forget the exact number of like referrals in the lunch period, to 0 the next year, literally to 0. And so what was happening, we were encountering kids who their only disciplinary referrals they'd ever had were associated with checking their cell phone between class. And so we had good kids who had never been in trouble for anything, answering a text from their mother about when they're going to get picked up. And then they were in the office, and the rule was you get detention or you get this, or this is your 3rd one, or what have you. And so we backed out of it. And I've spoken to Mrs. Pickett about this many times before, and I believe you had a similar experience at Oakleaf and Orange Park. You want to chime in or anything here?
Yes, same thing, and because we don't have one-to-one device right now, it is helpful to have cell phones because there are so many programs that teachers can use in the classroom, and then students can just use their cell phone. So, instead of, if somebody has all the Chromebooks because they're doing Achieve, but you want to do Jeopardy, you can still do the review. So that's an issue. I agree. The cafeteria level, noise level, decreased by at least 75% when we allowed cell phones, just because students are on their cell phones. Students have 30 minutes for lunch. They eat in about 10.
Yep.
And so now they're just sitting there with nothing to do if you don't allow them to have their phone. So at least if they have their phone, they're occupied and they're not punching and throwing food and all those things that we know sometimes students will do with idle time. Parent phone calls, I think in this day of safety, I would just have to gauge parents, but parents like to be able to get in touch with their children. They want to know if something's going on. So I think that could be a concern from parents. I think some are going to say yes, cell phones aren't good, but on the other hand, I think they're going to say, but I want to be able to get in touch with my child, or I want my child to be able to get in touch with me if needed. Also, we started weighing the fact, is a student using a cell phone at lunch worth, you're going to have to give them ISS at worst case scenario. Now they're out of class for something that people use every day. So teachers were like, it's more of a problem for a student to be in ISS for the day for using their cell phone, and me have to give them their work and them not receive instruction. Just let them use their cell phone so they can come to class. So that teachers really pushed a lot of that at Oakleaf because they just thought, really, as an adult, I like to use my cell phone. That's the other thing. I told the teachers, if the students aren't going to use them, neither are you. That's not fair for you to walk around texting when students can't use theirs either. So the teachers ended up going, gosh. So we cut our discipline referrals down a good bit just by...
Yeah, ours were 70% down, and so that, like, for each referral, just to give you I had 4 administrators, including myself, and we were wanting to walk classrooms and support instruction, but we couldn't do that because we were doing 10 to 15 minutes per referral on these things. And so our entire day was bus duty, referrals, cafeteria, referrals, parking lot duty. And so we were getting zero instructional support because of the level of those things, which we felt were kind of nickel and dime. So when we reacculturated and talked about what we wanted to do, our disciplinary data went down like 70%, and we didn't have any issues. I mean, I can't think of a single thing that I thought it was a change I would have done again and again. I felt like the value for us to be in classrooms then instead mitigated any of those issues. It allowed us to be visible and present and interact with instruction. And so while I think there are clearly instances where cell phones can be inconvenient and kids are immature. I've seen adults be immature with them sometimes as well, and totally acknowledge that. But I think when you think about this, and I say this because I've thought about it a lot before we implemented these things, is that, you know, I grew up without them, right? They didn't exist. And for most of the people in this room, that is true. And so we were never taught etiquette on cell phone use because that was never a thing. And so even while we're sitting in these things, everybody at some point is checking their cell phone. Everybody in this room has done it. And we've learned to multitask and use it in a way that's responsible and respectful. And we've had to learn that. And so my thing was, can we teach that to kids, or do we have a double standard with them, which I thought was problematic. So that was something we talked about internally as a staff with the teachers, and arrived at a consensus on how we were going to do it in our culture in our school. And it worked out very well for us, and I know it did for Mrs. Pickett's group as well, because she did the same thing. We did that independently of one another, but I think a workshop model to discuss it with other principals and get their feedback would be beneficial, because learning to live with technology is important. And if we can get on the same page about what that looks like, I think that would make those conversations with the parents easier.
So bringing it back, we're talking about a workshop for us to understand what some of the usage, what some of the concerns are. I have to agree, there's been a lot of, and we got an email last night or this morning, and probably to all of us, about inappropriate cell phone use and threatening and pictures of guns and the whole nine. I mean, that's where our concerns come in. It's like we're seeing the students that abuse the privilege.
Oh, no, there's no question, and those things many times happen off of hours too. And so I had a mom a couple of weeks ago who was concerned about a post, or someone said something unpleasant about another kid, and Chief will tell you, I mean, I'm not the cell phone police when that's on a private phone done after hours. It wasn't on school grounds. It was, it didn't cause a disruption in the schoolhouse, and those kind of criteria that you have to trigger. And I think that those go into trying to raise better citizens in terms of having communication about, what's appropriate, what's nice, what's not to do. But we could have the same kind of, teaching with many adults in our society right now when you see those things as well. So I think sometimes it's not particular to kids or kids in school. It's a societal issue that's kind of widespread that bears maybe a wider societal discussion. But for the schoolhouse, there are things that we can do and do, and I'm sure the elementary principals in here would have conversations and stories about how they did it as well. And I think maybe bringing those people who've already worked through it to the table to have that discussion so we're on the same page would have benefit.
So looking at our schedule, if we need the 28 days to advertise, and we want to start advertising, or we want to commit to a code of student conduct by July, June. You had said that we vote on it usually in April or May. I don't recall.
It's well in advance of August, because I know we've had the issue in the past where we've changed the dress code and parents had already done their school shopping and they were mad about that.
Correct. So we want to start early
Right.
in order to do that. And you had mentioned March. I mean, do we want to start this early in March? And if we want to select a date for a workshop, I'd be willing to, if everybody has their
Why
calendars.
don't we add it to our agenda review, the one at the end of March?
Yeah.
And
The
then it could be
23rd?
placed on the April meeting if we all are in agreement with whatever we come up with. It could go on the April meeting, be advertised, and then
That would give us
approved,
plenty of time,
and that gives
right.
a bit of time. And then we're already here for, you know, our meeting
Yeah,
and just
yeah,
flow
that
right
works.
into it after that, or even, you know, put it on the agenda as an item, put a placeholder, if nothing else, for it.
Right. So March 23rd is when our next agenda workshop is. And we could add, like you said, a discussion regarding the review of the Code of Student Conduct as a placeholder.
So, Mr. Bickner, if we discussed it at the agenda review and came up with something for you to put together as a policy or to change the existing policy, would that give you enough time to be able to get it on that agenda for the April agenda?
I was just looking at the timetable, and when you say you want it there for the school opening, school opens, what, the second week of August? And so it needs to be passed in July. The July meeting is the end of June.
Right.
Right.
So you're going to have to advertise in May.
Right.
So you're gonna have to have something that's ready to go in
Does that work?
mid-April,
Well, if we have this workshop on March 23rd,
right?
and we come up with some changes that we would like to implement,
And then we would need to get back together to go over it again.
So what if
so,
we added it to the March 8th workshop, where we're gonna do allocation? Can we do that?
So I would recommend to the board that you let us, one, research what cell phone policies are actually out there.
Yes.
You know,
Good idea.
there's
Good.
no,
Yeah.
you know, point in inventing the wheel.
Yeah.
If there's something
Right.
out there that's more agreeable to the board, give us time to work with principals out there of all three grade bands
Yeah.
to kind of see some of that and then bring forward that. So we can do that by the March 23rd. I'm not sure we can do that by the March,
yeah, that's,
to kind of make that happen.
okay.
I think the 23rd is a good idea. I think what you're gonna do, if you look at every policy that I've created or that we have created, it's always come to the board, you've given me more walking papers, it's come back with all of the changes, and in the meantime, I've sent it out. So it usually takes 2 meetings to get it buffed down to where everybody's happy.
Okay,
So if you can do it on March the 23rd with the first go-round, and then do it 2 weeks later again, then we could put it out for advertisement in plenty of time to get it in May, so that by June, because whatever that late June meeting is gonna be for July,
right,
that's your
right.
drop dead day.
Can we,
So-
we can't just do it with the student code of conduct, like, don't we revise the student code of conduct every year?
We do.
You're doing it student code of conduct, but it needs to be, the student code of conduct has to be created at some point as well. And what you're talking about is rewriting a large chunk of it, a large segment of it. And I think you're gonna need more input than what you're talking about. There have been things raised by Ms. Pickett and Mr. Daly, but you've also got union questions, because you've got things in the union contract, so you can't video a teacher while they're in a classroom. And I can tell you right now that we get complaints from parents because the kid brought home a video of the teacher and he didn't like what the teacher was saying. So all of this stuff is gonna take more input than I think that you're.
No, I agree,
Okay.
I was confused about the advertising deadlines, can we not just do it with the
You
development?
can do it with the code of conduct, but the code of conduct, in order to be out in August, is gonna have to be on that same timeline.
Okay.
But don't we actually have a cell phone policy in our policies, and that's what we would be changing?
Probably, but I can't tell you
So
what it is.
I'm fairly certain we do. So in order to change the code of conduct, we'd have to change our cell phone policy.
Right.
So
So this would be a policy review
I'm
that
pretty
would,
sure we
that
have
would
cell phone
ultimately
policy.
Wind up
affect
with
the
the code of
student
conduct.
code of conduct.
And I think of last year when they did the code of conduct, and it came out, and it was what Climate and Culture did, the code of conduct, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
And it came out, and I suggested changes, and then everybody left, and the changes didn't get made, and so we had to redo after the thing came out again,
Right.
with some updates that came from IT and from my office. So I think if we can coordinate with the code of conduct people, it would be better to go ahead and get everything done in one whack,
I agree.
rather than have to do it a piece here and a piece there, and then
Right.
have a redo after school opens.
I think that's what
That was my
yeah,
plan.
Yeah. So the March 23rd agenda, workshop, is where we can do this particular workshop. And in addition to, Ms. Karakas had mentioned looking at policies from other counties as well, which we can reach out and pull as well. And I think that would be helpful.
So my plan would be to send an email to all board members with what we discover as far as other policies. So you can read all of those ideas that are out there and what we currently do. And so, we'll obviously have to put more information out to you so you come, fully loaded for the 23rd workshop, and the discussion can occur then.
Find a balance.
That sounds great, I really
Sounds
appreciate
good.
you guys being
I'm
willing
glad you
to
brought
look
that up.
at
I think that's very important.
Well, especially in light of the many emails we've gotten in the last week.
Well,
Absolutely.
and it's a one-time, it hit the fan in the last week, but I mean, I've been on the board now for 7 years, and I can't even tell you how many times it has hit the fan because
Yes.
of cell phone use, so.
Yes.
I think it's long overdue that we look at it, and I really do appreciate you guys being willing, because I know it's a sensitive subject, and there's a lot of very strong opinions, and you can get a lot of heat over it, so I appreciate you guys being willing to look at it.
Oh, absolutely. And I like the idea of the three, the bands of like the high school, the junior high, and the elementary. Because I don't know how many times a cell phone would ding in somebody's backpack, and it's like, everybody would look at that student, and it would be like, okay, give me the cell phone, it'll be in the front office, you have to go see the principal at the end of the day, and I'll send you 5 minutes early, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just, it's like, and meanwhile, the students saying, but my parents want to be able to know that I'm in class because, it's got the
That's
GPS
important,
and
especially
the
since the
whole
Parkland
thing.
shootings, parents are, they probably are the majority of the texts that kids do get at school.
Well, and the kids that walk or ride their bikes to and from school, that GPS is critical. And whatever. Anything else, Ms. Gilhousen?
That's all.
You certainly stirred
Sorry,
it up.
I
Thanks
stirred
a
it
lot.
up, sorry about that.
Ms. Clark, any comments, concerns, questions?
No, I enjoyed going to the Finance Forum Conference. I know they've met a lovely lady from St. John's and Dr. Rebecca's capacity. So that was great, and meeting all the other, many of the other people in that organization, so. And I'm looking forward to a meeting after this meeting at CMARC to see what we can do with the career and technology education instead of always that college path for those students. So, anyway, whatever we can do to help them.
Very cool.
And I think that's the most urgent, so, nothing major.
Ms. Karakas?
Nope.
Ms. Bullock?
I just have a question. The timeline for if the Oversight Committee application, when it is approved, what will be the timeline for them actually submitting their application? Do we have it's due by?
My goal would be to have it, and I need to talk to Mr. Karen, but remember what I said, I envisioned as having a 3-part where you go to a committee, the committee part of the website, and you click on that, and then it comes to a 3-pronged thing where you have the policy, an explanation of everything, and then the application itself. Those things need to be put on the website, and the application itself needs to be part of that. My expectation would be it can be done within the next 2 weeks, but I need to talk to Mr. Kieran because he may have different commitments than that. But I would say probably, what's today? Probably by the 15th to 17th of March, somewhere in there.
Perhaps
So
when
that
that's available,
so that
we
it's
could
done
put something on the One Clay.
Yeah.
And that can also be sent out on Facebook and all of the
So if we have
connections
people that are interested, is what I'm saying, so they can go online and get that information.
I
That's
would
we
expect if
Post the
things work
application for
well.
30 days or something like that?
I'm sorry?
Will we post the application window will be open for 30 days or something like that?
Is there a deadline? Is there a
I don't know.
deadline listed
That's
on
kind
it?
of what I envisioned.
Mhm.
But
I think
again,
30 days.
it depends on what Mr. Karen and his department can do, but I think that it should be able to go live by mid-May, or excuse me, mid-March. Mid-March.
And once the application window closes, it can still sit out there until the next time
Right.
we need,
Right.
hopefully we won't need it as frequently, but you never know. If there's a turnaround or whatever.
So, Mr. Bickner, could you just for my own purposes, once people apply, is the board voting on them as a package during a board meeting? How does that work?
The way that the application is written, when you look at the application on page 1, paragraph 2 of the front page, it says that the applicants will be submitted to the board member for the area in which they live. And that board member will then take those applications and determine from that who they want to make part of that board or the committee. They will submit that to the entire board, and the entire board will have to pass and vote on the whole thing. But it also says that the board itself as a whole can't veto the applicants or the choices made by an individual board member. So if Ms. Gilhousen wants person number X, and everybody else says, we don't like it, well, I'm sorry, but that's her choice. And so that's kind of the way that it's put together. And so, but it will have to, the whole unit will go to the board for, now, that doesn't mean they can't sit and talk somebody out of something, it just means they can't veto it. I mean,
So reality then.
the whole purpose of people coming together in dialogue is to try to make sense out of things. And so if somebody's making a bad decision and somebody can say, well, you know, we've looked at this and we know this person, we've seen them forever, and you know, this is the result that you're going to get, and there may be a reason to change, but there's no veto power. That's the whole.
Bottom line, when we set the policy, it was 2 representatives from each of our districts.
And an alternate. Plus an alternate.
And an alternate, and 1 from you. And so once the application process is open and done, and let's say it's 30 days, whatever, using that as just a date. So 30 days would take us to, let's say, the middle of April, using that as an example. We have the opportunity then, we may take a couple of weeks to review the applications. So at the end of April, each of us has 2 people plus an alternate. We hope that many people apply. You know, we've not even discussed the fact that what if we don't get applications? I'm assuming we'll have plenty of people apply. And once that happens, then it would be a board agenda, it would be a board agenda, probably a discussion item that would say, let's, you know, it's now time to bring up the approval of the first committee for the half-cent sales tax. That's how I'm envisioning it. Is that,
that's right.
Is that right? I mean,
Okay.
and at that point, I mean, each of us has decided pretty much who's going to be from our district.
And we'll have
So it
submitted
would-
it to
Yeah.
Ms. Honora so that she can create whatever
Right.
agenda item is.
And in light of saying you can't veto someone else, I don't think it would be appropriate for me in District 4 to say, oh, I don't like the person you have for District whatever, 1 or 5 or.
And I understand that, and in that light, it might be better if you decide to have a workshop ahead of time so that you can look at what that group is going to look like.
Mhm.
Because they're, you know,
More so than the discussion, than the agenda workshop prior to the meeting? You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. It really depends on whether or not you think you're gonna have significant
Discussion.
reasons to want some change, and whether or not you think you're gonna have an open mind on the other side of the table. If there's going to be change from the agenda workshop, then there has to be time to publish that. So if there is, there is. If there's not, then we have to look at that. But you're saying you don't think it ought to be on the board floor at the meeting, and I agree with you. But there has to be some point at which the group can sit and look at that group of people and say, you know, well, I understand, but this person has been in trouble for 30 years, and we don't want to. And that other person may not know about that person's history, and so it gives an opportunity for change.
I can't imagine anybody saying that about a person at a meeting.
I'm not sure I really like the sound of that. I mean, I
No.
think if I've chosen someone, it's because I believe that those people have good intentions and are there for the right reason. And I don't think any of you should second guess me. And if, you know, Ms. Clark chose one, I'm not gonna second guess her and say, you know, I don't think we should do that.
I'm sorry, but I'm thinking of people who have come to our meetings in the past.
I know.
And I'm thinking, I'm just saying that.
But
That's
I
all I'll
think
say.
that none of us would
I can't
point
imagine
somebody
any
that
of
has
us
been,
would.
you know, disruptive
Yeah.
or,
But all in all, what is their role? To monitor?
Well,
not
that's all.
oversight,
Right.
strictly oversight.
You're saying you don't think you should be able to do that, but I'm saying, I'm not going to tell you you can't, because that's not my spot.
Right.
And so you can't veto, and I think that's been agreed to,
Right.
but there's nothing that says you can't try to talk somebody out of something.
Right.
But if you don't wanna do that, it's your board, and it's your rules, do what you want.
Well, I can tell you, I'm not gonna say anything publicly that would be negative about an individual person.
No,
So,
No, not at all.
I don't feel the need to have that
We
discussion.
could probably handle it at the agenda review.
Yes,
And,
yeah.
you know,
Then you don't need to even have a workshop. You
Right,
just move
well, that
straight.
would be part of the workshop, that would be, yeah.
You just
I
go
mean, that's why
straight
I'm
to-
thinking, if we, that gives us plenty of time before the meeting, if there is a question. I'm hoping that we have loads of applications from which to choose.
I think it's
That's
gonna go
going.
just smooth as silk, you're gonna be surprised.
Yep, that too,
There
that
you go,
too.
Mr. Bickner.
Okay, so, and, I'd like to thank, Sheila Gann and everybody for the insurance committee. I tell you, I'm very pleased with that. I was glad to,
Absolutely.
it was an easier time representing the board than previous times that I've gone in, so, I'm so grateful. Also, I know we've, received a few letters regarding the Ed First plans, so I just wanna, make mention of that. And, this Saturday, unfortunately, we lost an employee, Kristen Chasen, who was the, physical education teacher at McRae and suffered with cancer for many years, 39 years old, passed away, and her service is gonna be this Saturday, so, so our condolences to the family, as well as any others that we've had concerns to. Thank you. That's all I have.
Oh, that's sad. Yes, Miss Gann, another feather in your cap.
Yep.
Nicely
Very
done.
good.
I see that smile behind your mask. Yay. That breath, that sigh of relief. Thank you all for all of your time this morning. There was a lot of discussion, and we appreciate all of your support and all of you being here. And on that note, we'd like to adjourn.